We've all got a camera in our pocket, and in today's world, it's a pretty good one. But most people don't know how to maximize the quality of video they get from their phone. Because really, you can go from something that normally looks like this to this. And I'm going to show you how right now. Just like you would with an actual camera, you gotta shoot manually to maximize quality. I'd suggest downloading the Blackmagic camera app to do so, as I think it's just the best app for the job. Now I know it might look confusing at first, but you really only need to know a few things. Shoot in 4K for max resolution, shoot in 24 or 25 frames per second to get standard cinematic looking footage, and you want to lock your shutter speed to double your frame rate. So if I'm shooting 25 frames per second, my shutter should be set to 1/50. This ensures smooth, natural motion blur instead of really choppy footage or really blurry footage. You can be a bit flexible with this rule, but obviously this is just a guidance for a standard sort of look. And for your ISO, generally you want to keep it as low as possible so there's less noise in your image. Try and keep it around ISO 50 to 400, but you may have to bump it up a bit even more if you're in really low light conditions. And one last setting to turn on is to shoot in ProRes, or if possible in ProRes RAW and log. I can only shoot in ProRes as I don't have a Pro iPhone, and I'm sure a lot of you are the same. But shooting in this ProRes codec is far less compressed, which generally means better quality video for you to edit with. And it's also a lot faster to edit with, even though the file sizes are a bit bigger. Now, with these sort of settings locked in, you may notice if you're outside or in brighter conditions, it's going to be looking pretty overexposed. And that's because the shutter speed is fixed at 1/50 and it's not auto cranking to expose for the outside light. To counteract this, we need sunglasses for our phone's camera lens. This is called a neutral density filter, or an ND filter for short. This one specifically is from Sandmarc, and they sent me this to showcase. All you gotta do is screw it onto their phone case, and you can turn the filter to adjust the amount of polarization that is happening. So when you're outside, you can put this on and crank the filter to darken the exposure, allowing you to keep that natural motion blur for a cinematic, beautiful look. If you are serious about shooting video on any camera, I think having an ND filter is really important. But let's take this a step further. Sandmarc also sent me this anamorphic lens that they have to adapt to my phone. An anamorphic lens squeezes your image for a wider field of view and gives a very characteristic look with noticeable lens flares, which I'm sure you've seen in movies. So putting this lens on my phone turns the image from looking like this to this. And you might be thinking, this looks horrible, it's all warped and squished. Well, we have to de-squeeze it by 1.55 times, which we can do automatically in the Blackmagic camera app, or you can do in your editing software. You've got that wide, cinematic look with black bars that instantly make your footage look like a movie. I think this is a really cool accessory to have, along with the ND filter, which is a great combo together to shoot quality, stylized video from your phone. I've left a link in the description if you do want to check these products out. It directly supports me and my channel if you decide to pick something up using the link below. You should also consider using longer focal lengths, like 50mm and up. It's a great way to have a more premium look to your footage. It compresses the background and increases the depth of field, which is how out of focus and blurry the background is. So by mixing things up and zooming in a little bit to reframe your shots, it can really make a difference with how things look. Especially when you pair it with the anamorphic lens that I just showed. Obviously, if you have a Pro phone or Pro iPhone, you're gonna have better quality with a zoom lens because you do usually have that telephoto lens as a third camera. But most of us only have 1 or 2 cameras on our phones, so you're just gonna have to deal with a bit of optical quality difference when zooming in. But honestly, I think it's kind of worth it for the tighter focal length. And of course, the ultimate cheat code to make anything look cinematic, if you can even call it a cheat code, is lighting. It is arguably the most important thing for visuals. So if you're shooting outside, pick a time of day where the sun isn't at its harshest, which is in the middle of the day. And if it is, position your subject so it's being backlit by the sun and the sun isn't in front of you, because otherwise the subject is going to be very evenly, flatly lit. So it's best to shoot in the evenings or the early mornings where the sun is more pleasant and usually more vibrant. If you're inside, stay next to windows for natural ambient light, and if possible, set up your own lighting. I've got plenty of videos on my channel talking about budget lighting setups, which you can check out if you want to learn more about all that stuff. Alright, so you've shot all your footage, now it's time to color grade it. I think it's best to be subtle and do small color changes, nothing too crazy. Unless you have raw 10-bit footage to play with, but most of us don't, coming from a phone. For a traditional filmic look, we can play with the luma curve and bring down the highlights for a softer roll-off, and lift the blacks just a little bit. Immediately, we have a more faded film look. Or you could go in the opposite direction and lift the highlights and crunch the shadows with this S-curve shape for added contrast. It's really up to your personal preference. And to play with some colors, again, I'd suggest being really subtle with it. Tweak the dominant colors of your image. If it's a sky, maybe change up the hue, saturation and luma values to get a more impactful look. Maybe the grass in your image you want to be more vibrant or less vibrant, so you tweak the greens and yellows. But just be careful of affecting your own skin tones when messing with hue and saturation, because you can start to look a bit wacky. At the end of the day, I really think the best practice is just to enhance what's already looking good in your image, and I think you'll always get a decent result from that. Or, you could just slap a LUT right on top and call it a day. So using everything in combination that I showed you in this video, I think with some extra practice, you're bound to capture way better looking footage that actually has some cinematic qualities to it. All on your phone, and all without having to buy an expensive camera.